How can something cost £100 and still be cheap? Well, price and worth aren't the same thing. Something can have a higher price and still be excellent value, and something can have a low price and still be a terrible deal. So the real question isn't how much does it cost, it's what is it actually worth? Our intuition tends to treat price as if it's an objective measurement of worth. Something costs £100, so we assume it must be worth £100. But a price isn't a measurement of worth. It's simply the amount someone is currently willing to pay for something. And that distinction becomes really important when we start making decisions. So what actually makes something worth £100? Is it materials? The amount of time that it took us to make? How useful it is? Or simply what somebody is willing to pay? Imagine I give you £100 and you have two choices. You can buy a watch, or you can spend £100 on a weekend away. They're both £100, but are they worth the same to you? If you never wear watches, probably not. If you absolutely love travelling, then that weekend away might be incredibly valuable to you. The price would still be the same, but the worth isn't necessarily the same. And this is the distinction I want to make throughout this video. Price is what you pay. Worth is what you believe you're getting in return. That could be usefulness, quality, enjoyment, reliability, future benefits, or simply how much something matters to you. And because those things differ from person to person, two people can look at exactly the same thing and decide that it has completely different worth. But here's where it gets interesting. If worth can be different for people, can something actually be objectively cheap? Let's use a much more practical example. Imagine two cars. One costs £3,000, the other costs £15,000. Which one is cheaper? Well, obviously you'd say the £3,000 car. But which one is better value? Well, we don't know yet. Imagine the £3,000 car has 200,000 miles on it. It needs a new engine and has a history of problems. The £15,000 car has only 50,000 miles, a full service history, and is expected to last for years. Suddenly the £3,000 car doesn't look like such a bargain. And the £15,000 car might actually be better value, so worth more. And I think this is the simplest way to remember the difference. Cheap is simply a description. Value is a judgment, and worth is what it means to you. Cheap simply tells you that something has a low price. Value asks what you're getting is worth what you're paying. And this becomes even more interesting when we move on to investing, because investors are constantly looking at prices and trying to decide whether something is cheap or whether it's cheap for a reason. Imagine a company's share price falls from £100 to £50. It's now 50% cheaper. So is it a bargain? Well, not necessarily. The price has fallen, but we still need to ask why. Maybe investors have overreacted to some temporary bad news. Maybe the company has a serious long-term problem. Or maybe the business is fundamentally stronger than the market currently believes. The same £50 could represent completely different opportunities depending on what happens next. So simply seeing a lower number doesn't tell us whether something has become better value. And now we have to ask a very difficult question. If the price doesn't tell us what something is worth, how do we actually work out what it's worth? And there's lots of good ways we can consider this. How good is the thing that we're buying? How useful is it? How scarce is it? What benefits could it provide in the future? And what risks come with it? Do we have any alternatives? None of these give us a perfect answer. But together, they help us form an estimate. And this is where investing becomes particularly difficult. And when you're buying a share, you're not just paying for what the company is doing today. You're also paying for what you expect it to do in the future. And we don't know the future. We can make estimates, we can make predictions, but at the end of the day, they're still estimates. Imagine investors expect a company to grow by 20%. Instead, it grows by 10%. 10% growth sounds pretty good, but the market wasn't expecting 10%. It was expecting 20%. So the share price could actually fall. The company performed well, but it performed worse than people expected. And this is one of the strangest things about financial markets. Good news isn't always good news for the share price. This is another important distinction. The performance of a business is one thing. The price investors are willing to pay for that business is another. A great company can be overpriced. A struggling company can sometimes be underpriced. The difficult part is figuring out which one you're actually looking at. So when we're making a decision, what should we actually ask ourselves? Instead of simply asking, is this expensive or is this cheap? We can ask a much better set of questions. What am I actually getting? What benefits could I receive? What risks am I taking? What alternatives do I have? What am I expecting to happen? And finally, what am I paying for all of this? That's a much better and more useful way of thinking than simply looking at the number on the price tag. So the takeaway is simple. Price is observable, but worth has to be estimated. You can see the price immediately, but understanding what something is actually worth takes much more work. And sometimes we can get that estimate completely wrong. And that leaves us with one final problem. If we're estimating what something is worth, what happens when our estimate is wrong? Because uncertainty isn't just about whether something looks dangerous. Sometimes the biggest risks are the ones we don't ever see. And that's where we'll go next. I'll see you in the next one.